Welcome to Alpha Destiny Tales, where forbidden romance, dark mysteries, and powerful alpha kings come to life. Tonight, I'm bringing you a story that will make your heart race and your soul ache. Picture this: a young woman so desperate to escape her fate that she flees into the most dangerous place in the realm, the frozen mountain caves of Thorn Peak, where temperatures drop so low that even wolves fear to tread. Her name is Alara, and she's running from a ceremony that would bind her forever to a man she doesn't love. But what she doesn't know is that the mountains hold a far more dangerous predator, Alpha King Kale of Nightshade, the most powerful werewolf in existence. When he finds her shivering in those crystal caves, everything changes. Will he drag her back to face her destiny, or will he become her destiny? This is a story of defiance, desire, and a love that could shatter kingdoms. Stay with me until the very end, because what happens between them in those frozen caves will leave you breathless. Before we dive in, if you love stories about powerful alphas, forbidden romance, and supernatural mysteries, hit that subscribe button right now and smash that like button. We're on a mission to reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you makes that dream closer to reality. Your support means everything, so let's build this pack together. The night Alara fled was the coldest of the year. Snow fell in thick, suffocating sheets across the village of Clan Frost, and the wind howled like tortured spirits through the narrow streets. Inside the Temple of the Ancients, preparations were underway for the Moonbinding ceremony, a sacred ritual that would tie Alara's soul to Theron, the son of the clan's second-in-command. She should have been honored. Theron was strong, respected, a promising warrior. But Alara couldn't breathe when she thought about spending eternity bound to a man whose eyes held only duty, never passion. Her mother had dressed her in ceremonial white, the fabric heavy with silver embroidery that caught the firelight. The dress was beautiful, suffocating. Alara stared at her reflection in the small mirror, seeing not a bride, but a prisoner. Outside, she could hear the drums beginning, the low chant of the elders calling to the moon. In less than an hour, she would stand before them all, would speak the binding words that could never be undone. The thought made her skin crawl. She waited until her mother left to join the ceremony. Then she moved. Her hands trembled as she tore off the ceremonial dress and pulled on her traveling clothes, thick wool and leather meant for harsh weather. She stuffed what little she could carry into a small pack: bread, dried meat, a water skin, a knife. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought it might break through. If they caught her, if they dragged her back, there would be no mercy. Defying the Moonbinding was the gravest sin in Clan Frost. But Alara had made her choice. She would rather freeze to death in the mountains than live a half-life bound to duty. She slipped out through the back window of her family's cabin, landing in fresh snow that came up to her knees. The cold bit through her clothes immediately, vicious and unforgiving. She didn't have time to feel it. Behind her, she heard the drums growing louder, the chanting intensifying. They would be calling her name soon. She ran. The forest was a blur of dark pines and white snow as Alara pushed through the drifts, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She knew where she was going. Everyone in Clan Frost knew about the Thorn Peak Caves, the cursed network of crystal caverns high in the mountains, where the air itself could kill you. No one went there. Old stories spoke of ancient magic in those caves, of wolves that walked on two legs and eyes that glowed in the dark. But Alara was more afraid of the life behind her than the legends ahead. It took her hours to reach the base of Thorn Peak. Her legs burned, her lungs screamed, and her fingers had gone numb inside her gloves. The mountain loomed above her, its peak lost in swirling clouds and snow. She could barely see 5 feet in front of her, but she kept climbing, kept pushing forward. Somewhere behind her, she knew they would be searching. Her absence would have been discovered by now. Theron would be humiliated. The elders would be furious. But she couldn't think about that. She could only climb. She almost missed the entrance to the cave. It was hidden behind a frozen waterfall, a narrow gap in the rock that she had to squeeze through sideways. The moment she stepped inside, the howling wind cut off, replaced by an eerie, crystalline silence. Alara fumbled for the small torch in her pack, struck flint to steel, and gasped when light bloomed around her. The cave was breathtaking. The walls were made entirely of ice, but not the cloudy, opaque ice she knew. This ice was crystal clear, shot through with veins of silver and blue that seemed to glow with their own inner light. Massive stalactites hung from the ceiling like the fangs of some primordial beast, and the floor was smooth, almost mirror-like. In the center of the cavern was a thermal pool, steam rising from its surface in delicate spirals. It was the only warm thing in this frozen hell, and Alara stumbled toward it like a woman possessed. She fell to her knees at the pool's edge, plunging her frozen hands into the water. The heat was almost painful, but she didn't care. Tears streamed down her face, whether from relief or grief she couldn't tell. She had done it. She had escaped. But as she knelt there, the reality of her situation crashed over her. She was alone. She had no plan beyond survival. And even if the cold didn't kill her, eventually hunger would. That's when she felt it. A presence. The hair on the back of her neck stood up, and every instinct in her body screamed danger. Alara spun around, her hand going to the knife at her belt, but she froze when she saw him. He stood at the cave entrance, a shadow-given form. He was tall, impossibly tall, with broad shoulders and a presence that seemed to fill the entire cavern. His eyes caught the torchlight and reflected it back, glowing a brilliant, inhuman gold. His hair was dark, almost black, and fell past his shoulders. He was dressed in black leather and fur, and there was something about the way he moved, predatory, controlled, that made every part of Alara's body lock up in fear. "Well," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in her chest. "What do we have here?" "A little runaway bride, all alone in my mountains." Alara's hand tightened on her knife. "Stay back," she warned, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to sound brave. The man— no, not a man. There was nothing human about those eyes. Tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her feel naked, despite her layers of clothing. "Do you know where you are, little one?" he asked, taking a step forward. Alara took a step back, nearly stumbling into the thermal pool. "These caves belong to me. Everything in these mountains belongs to me. I don't care." Alara spat, trying to sound defiant even as her heart threatened to beat out of her chest. "I'm not going back. I don't care if you kill me, I'm not going back to that ceremony." Something flickered in those golden eyes. Amusement, curiosity. "Kill you?" He took another step forward, and now Alara could see him more clearly. He was devastatingly beautiful in a dangerous, otherworldly way. His features were sharp, aristocratic, but there was a wildness to him that no amount of fine clothes could hide. "Why would I kill you? You're far too interesting for that." "Who are you?" Alara demanded, even though part of her already knew. The stories she'd heard as a child whispered through her mind. The Alpha King, the Wolf of Nightshade, the most powerful predator in all the realm. He smiled, and the sight of it made something low in Alara's belly clench with an emotion she didn't want to name. "My name is Kyle," he said simply. "And you, little runaway, are standing in my private sanctuary. The question is, what am I going to do with you?" Alara's mind raced. She was trapped. Behind her was the thermal pool. To her sides were walls of ice. And in front of her was Kale, blocking the only exit. Her knife felt pathetically small in her hand, but she held it steady. "I told you," she said, lifting her chin in defiance. "I'm not going back. If you try to make me, I'll fight you." Kyle laughed, a rich, warm sound that seemed completely at odds with the predator before her. "Fight me?" he repeated, closing the distance between them in 2 long strides. He was so close now that Alara could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell pine and snow and something dark and intoxicating. "You're brave. I'll give you that. Foolish, but brave." He reached out, and before Alara could react, he plucked the knife from her hand as easily as if she were a child. She gasped, stumbling backward, and would have fallen into the pool if Kale hadn't caught her. His hand wrapped around her upper arm, steadying her, and the touch sent electricity racing through her entire body. His skin was burning hot, almost feverish, and yet she didn't want to pull away. "Let me go," she whispered. But there was no force behind the words. Kale stared down at her, his expression unreadable. "You ran from your moonbinding," he said. "And it wasn't a question. From Clan Frost. I can smell the ceremony oils on your skin, can see the marks where the ceremonial dress rubbed against your shoulders." Ilara's throat tightened. "How do you—" "I know everything that happens in these mountains," Kyle interrupted. "Every clan, every pack, every petty power struggle. I'm the Alpha King. It's my business to know." His thumb rubbed absently against her arm, the gesture oddly gentle for someone who radiated such danger. "What I want to know is why. Why would you risk death in these caves rather than accept your binding?" Ilara met his gaze, and something in his eyes made her want to tell the truth. "Because I won't spend my life as someone's duty," she said fiercely. "I won't be bound to a man who sees me as nothing more than a political alliance. I'd rather die free than live in chains, even if those chains are made of moonlight and tradition." For a long moment, Kale said nothing. He just stared at her, those golden eyes searching her face like he was looking for something. Then, slowly, he released her arm and stepped back. "You're bleeding," he said quietly, gesturing to her hands. Ilara looked down and realized he was right. Her palms were torn and bloody from climbing, the skin raw and split. She hadn't even felt it through the adrenaline and cold. "It's nothing," she muttered. "It's something," Kale corrected. He moved to a leather pack she hadn't noticed before, rummaging through it until he pulled out a small jar and strips of clean cloth. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to a flat rock near the thermal pool. "I don't need your help," Ilara protested. But Kale fixed her with a look that made it clear she had no choice in the matter. Reluctantly, she sat. He knelt in front of her, and the sight of the Alpha King, the most powerful being in the realm, on his knees before her, made Ilara's head spin. He took her hand in his touch surprisingly gentle, and began cleaning her wounds with water from the pool. The sting made her hiss, but she didn't pull away. "You're right," Kale said after a moment, his voice low. "About chains, about duty." He paused, applying salve to her torn palms with careful precision. "I was bound once. My father arranged a marriage for me, a political alliance with a neighboring kingdom. I was expected to go through with it, to do my duty like a good heir." Ilara stared at him. "What did you do?" Kyle's lips curved into a dark smile. "I challenged my father for the throne, fought him in single combat during the full moon. When I won, I exiled the bride-to-be and took my rightful place as Alpha King. No one has dared try to force my hand since." "You fought your own father?" Ilara whispered, both horrified and awed. "I did what I had to do to be free," Kyle said simply. He finished wrapping her hands in cloth, then sat back on his heels, still holding her hands in his. "Which brings me back to you, little runaway. What are you going to do now? You can't stay in these caves forever. The cold will kill you, or the hunger, or something worse. And you can't go back to Clan Frost. They'll drag you to that ceremony in chains if they have to." Ilara felt tears pricking at her eyes. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I just knew I had to run. I couldn't go through with it." Kale was quiet for a long moment, his golden eyes studying her with an intensity that made her feel exposed in ways that had nothing to do with the cold. Then, he made a decision. "You'll come with me," he said, standing and pulling her to her feet. "To Nightshade. My palace." Ilara's eyes widened. "What? No, I can't." "You can, and you will," Kale interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. "You want freedom? I'm offering it to you. In Nightshade, you'll be under my protection. No clan can touch you. No ceremony can bind you. You'll be safe." "Why would you do that?" Ilara demanded, suspicious. "What do you want from me?" Kale's expression was unreadable. "Maybe I'm curious," he said. "Maybe I want to see what a woman brave enough to defy her clan and stupid enough to hide in these caves is capable of. Or maybe—" He stepped closer, and Ilara's breath caught. "Maybe I recognize something in you. Something wild that refuses to be caged. And I find that intriguing." Ilara's heart was pounding so hard, she thought he must be able to hear it. Everything in her told her to say no, to run. to keep fighting on her own. But the logical part of her brain knew he was right. She wouldn't survive out here alone. And something about the way he looked at her, not with duty or obligation, but with genuine interest, maybe even respect, made her want to trust him. "If I come with you," she said slowly, "I'm not your prisoner. I'm not some pet you can keep." Cale's smile was wolfish. "No," he agreed. "You'll be my guest, free to roam the palace, to leave if you choose." But his voice dropped to a dangerous purr. "I have a feeling once you see what Nightshade has to offer, you won't want to leave." Before Alara could respond, a howl echoed through the mountains, distant but unmistakable. Both of them stiffened. "Your clan," Cale said, his expression darkening. "They're searching for you. They're closer than I thought they'd be." Panic flooded through Alara. "They can't find me. If they find me, they won't," Cale said firmly. He moved to the cave entrance, his body language shifting into something predatory and alert. "But we need to leave. Now." He glanced back at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her pulse race. "Do you trust me, Alara?" She realized he'd used her name, though she'd never told it to him. Of course he knew. He was the Alpha King. He knew everything. "I don't know," she admitted. "Then let me earn it," Kyle said, extending his hand to her. "Come with me. Let me show you what freedom really looks like." Alara stared at his hand, at the promise and danger it represented. Behind her was the life she'd fled, the chains she'd broken. Ahead was uncertainty, but also possibility. She thought of the thermal pool, of the crystal caves, of Cale's words about fighting for his freedom. She thought about the howls growing closer, about Theron's emotionless eyes, about a life of duty and suffocation. She took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong, and he pulled her close against his side. "Hold on to me," he murmured. "What I'm about to do, you're not going to believe it." "What are you?" Alara started, but the words died in her throat as Cale's body began to change. Bones cracked and reformed, muscle rippled under skin, and in the space of a heartbeat, he was no longer a man, but a massive black wolf, easily the size of a horse. His fur was midnight dark, shot through with silver that caught the light from the crystal walls, and his eyes, still that brilliant gold, fixed on her with an intelligence that was absolutely not animal. Alara should have been terrified. She should have screamed, should have run. But instead she felt a strange sense of awe. This was what he truly was. Not the man in fine clothes, but this magnificent creature of power and wildness. The wolf, Kyle, lowered himself, and Alara understood what he wanted. With shaking hands, she climbed onto his back, wrapping her arms around his thick neck and burying her fingers in his soft fur. The moment she was secure, Cale surged forward, bursting out of the cave and into the storm. The world became a blur of white and black as Cale ran. He moved with impossible speed, his paws barely touching the snow, navigating the treacherous mountain paths like he could see in the dark. Alara clung to him, the wind whipping her hair back, her heart in her throat. She could hear howls behind them, Clan Frost's wolves giving chase, but they were nowhere near as fast as Cale. He was a force of nature, unstoppable, and Alara felt something shift inside her. For the first time in her life, she felt truly free. They ran through the night, leaving Thornpeak and Clan Frost far behind, racing toward a destiny that neither of them could have predicted. And as the first hints of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, Alara caught her first glimpse of Nightshade Palace rising from the mist like something out of a dark fairy tale, and she knew that her life would never be the same. That's just the beginning of Alara and Cale's story. And trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. If you're loving this already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a like. We need your help to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support literally makes all the difference. Comment below and tell me, do you think Alara made the right choice? Is Cale a savior or something far more dangerous? Let's discuss. And don't go anywhere, because the next chapter is coming soon, and the secrets of Nightshade Palace are darker than you can imagine. Nightshade Palace was nothing like Alara had imagined. She'd heard stories, of course. Everyone had. Tales of the Alpha King's fortress carved from black stone and silver, perched on the edge of the world where the mountains met the sky. But stories could never capture the reality of it. As Kale carried her through the massive iron gates, Alara felt like she was entering another realm entirely. The palace was huge, a sprawling complex of towers and courtyards, all built from dark stone that seemed to absorb the morning light rather than reflect it. Silver veins ran through the stone like frozen lightning, and everywhere she looked, there were wolves. Some in human form, tall and beautiful and deadly, others in their animal forms, prowling the grounds with eyes that tracked her every movement. All of them bowed their heads as Kyle passed, a gesture of respect and submission that spoke volumes about the power he held here. Kyle shifted back to human form once they were inside the main courtyard, his transformation as fluid and natural as breathing. Alara slid from his back, her legs unsteady after hours of riding, and found herself face to face with a woman who looked like she'd been carved from ice and fury. "You brought a human here," the woman said, her voice sharp as a blade. She was tall, with platinum blonde hair that fell to her waist, and eyes the color of a frozen lake. She wore armor, black leather and silver plates, and there was a sword at her hip that looked well used. An outsider. To Nightshade. "She's under my protection, Lyra," Kyle said, his voice carrying an edge of warning. "That makes her pack. Anyone who challenges that challenges me." Lyra's eyes narrowed, flicking between Kyle and Alara with obvious displeasure. She ran from her moonbinding. "The clans are going to see this as an act of war. You're harboring their property." "She's not property," Alara snapped before she could stop herself. "I'm not anyone's property." Lyra's gaze snapped to her, and Alara felt the full weight of the woman's predatory attention. "You've got spirit," Lyra said slowly. "That might keep you alive here. Or it might get you killed. We'll see which." "Enough," Kyle said, stepping between them. "Alara needs rest, food, and proper clothes. See to it, Lyra." Lyra looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Kale's expression made her think better of it. She inclined her head, a gesture that was more mocking than respectful. "As you command, Alpha." Kale turned to Alara, and his expression softened slightly. "Lyra's my second in command. She's rough around the edges, but she's loyal. You'll be safe with her." "Where are you going?" Alara asked, hating how small her voice sounded. "I have matters to attend to," Kale said. "Your escape has caused ripples. I need to manage them before they become waves." He reached out, his thumb brushing her cheek in a gesture so gentle it made her breath catch. "Don't worry, little runaway. You're pack now. Nothing and no one will touch you here." He left before Alara could respond, striding off with a group of his wolves. She watched him go, feeling strangely bereft, before Lyra cleared her throat. "Come on then," the woman said, turning on her heel. "Let's get you cleaned up. You smell like fear and snow, and neither is appealing." Lyra led her through a maze of corridors, all made of that same dark stone with silver veins. The palace was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way, all sharp angles and cold surfaces. But there was warmth, too, in the torches that lined the walls, in the thick furs that covered the floors, in the glimpses Alara caught of wolves laughing and talking in various rooms. This was a home, not just a fortress. They arrived at a set of double doors, and Lyra pushed them open to reveal a bedroom that took Alara's breath away. It was huge, with a massive four-poster bed draped in dark silk and furs. A fireplace took up one entire wall, already crackling with warmth, and floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the mountains. There was a private bathing room attached, and Alara could see steam rising from what looked like a natural hot spring built into the floor. "This is..." Alara started, but words failed her. "Yours," Lyra finished. "For as long as you're here." She moved to a wardrobe and began pulling out clothes, soft tunics, and leather pants, dresses of varying styles, all in dark, rich colors. "These should fit. If they don't, we'll have them altered." Alara ran her fingers over a dress made of midnight blue silk, unable to believe any of this was real. "Why is Kale doing this?" she asked quietly. "He doesn't know me. He has no reason to help me." Lyra was quiet for a long moment, and when Alara looked up, she found the woman studying her with an unreadable expression. Kyle doesn't do anything without a reason, Lyra said finally, but his reasons are his own. If you're smart, you won't question his generosity. Just be grateful for it. And if I'm not smart, Alara challenged. Lyra's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. Then you and I are going to get along just fine. She headed for the door, then paused. One piece of advice, girl. Whatever you think you know about Kyle, you're wrong. He's not your savior, and he's not your villain. He's an Alpha King, and that means he's something far more complicated. Keep your wits about you, and maybe you'll survive Nightshade after all. With that cryptic warning, Lyra left, and Alara was alone. She should have been afraid. She should have been planning her next escape, her next move. But as she sank into the steaming water of the hot spring, feeling the warmth chase away the lingering cold from the mountains, all she felt was exhausted relief. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she didn't have to pretend, didn't have to smile and nod while her future was decided for her. Here, in this strange palace full of wolves and danger, she was free to simply be. The days that followed were surreal. Alara explored Nightshade Palace, discovering its many secrets. There was a vast library filled with books on wolf lore and ancient magic, a training yard where warriors practiced with brutal efficiency, and a garden that shouldn't have been possible this high in the mountains, with trees that bore silver leaves and flowers that bloomed even in the cold. Everywhere she went, wolves watched her, some with curiosity, others with suspicion, but none with the dull indifference she'd endured in Clan Frost. But it was Kale who occupied most of her thoughts. She saw him in the evenings, when he would find her in the library or the garden, and they would talk. He asked her about her life, about why she'd been chosen for the Moonbinding, about her dreams and fears. And in return, he told her about Nightshade, about the weight of being Alpha King, about the loneliness that came with absolute power. They never touched, never crossed any lines, but there was a connection growing between them that Alara couldn't deny. It was on her 5th night in Nightshade that everything changed. Alara was in the library, curled up by the fire with a book on ancient wolfpack structures, when Kale appeared. But this time, there was something different about him. His movements were tense, controlled, and his eyes, those brilliant gold eyes, held a wildness she hadn't seen since that first night in the caves. Alara, he said, his voice rough, I need to show you something important. She set down her book, her heart beginning to race. What is it? Kale held out his hand, and Alara took it without hesitation. He led her through the palace, past the throne room, past the great hall, down a set of stairs she hadn't noticed before. They descended deep into the heart of the mountain, the air growing cooler and more charged with every step. Finally, they emerged into a cavern that made Alara gasp. It was similar to the crystal cave where they'd first met, but larger, more magnificent. The walls were covered in ancient symbols that glowed with a soft blue light, and in the center of the cavern was a pool of water so still it looked like black glass. The moon was visible through a natural opening in the ceiling, its light casting everything in silver and shadow. This is the heart of Nightshade, Kale said quietly, the source of our power. Every Alpha King for the last 1,000 years has come here to commune with the old magic, to draw strength from the earth and the moon. It's beautiful, Alara whispered. But why are you showing me this? Kyle turned to face her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. Because in 3 days it's the full moon, he said, the night of the blood moon. It's the most powerful night of the year for our kind, when the magic is at its peak. And on that night, I need to perform a ritual, a binding ritual. Alara felt her stomach drop. You're getting married? No, Kyle said, and the relief that flooded through her was alarming in its intensity. Not married, but I need to bind myself to someone, to anchor my power. It's tradition, necessary for an Alpha King. My father did it, his father before him. The magic demands it. Then why are you telling me this? Alara asked, though part of her was afraid she already knew the answer. Kale took a step closer, and Alara's back hit the cavern wall. He braced one hand against the stone beside her head, caging her in, and his free hand came up to cup her face. Because I want it to be you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I want you to be my anchor, Ilara, not because of duty or politics or tradition, but because in these past days, you've become something to me, something important. Ilara's mind was reeling. I don't understand. You barely know me. I know enough, Kale said. His thumb traced her lower lip, and she shivered. I know you're brave and stubborn and willing to die for your freedom. I know you challenge me in ways no one else dares. I know that when I'm with you, the weight of the crown feels lighter. His golden eyes searched hers. I know that the thought of binding myself to anyone else makes me want to tear this palace apart stone by stone. Kale, Ilara started, but he continued. The binding isn't like a moonbinding. It's not a marriage, not an ownership. It's a connection, a tether that links our souls together. You would share in my power, be protected by the magic of Nightshade, but it also means you would feel what I feel, know what I know. Our lives would be intertwined. That sounds terrifying, Ilara said, but her voice shook. It is, Kale agreed. It's terrifying and permanent and irrevocable. But it's also... He leaned in, his lips brushing the shell of her ear. It's also the most intimate thing two people can share. More than marriage, more than anything. It's choosing each other, not out of obligation, but out of desire. Ilara's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might explode. And if I say no? Kale pulled back enough to look her in the eyes. Then I perform the ritual alone, and we go back to how things were. You'll still be under my protection, still be free. But this, he gestured between them, to the space crackling with tension and possibility. This ends, because I can't keep you close and not want more. And I won't force you into anything. Ilara stared at him, at this powerful, dangerous man who had given her freedom when no one else would, who looked at her like she was something precious rather than something to be used. She thought about the moonbinding she'd fled, about Theron's cold eyes and the life of duty that awaited her. And then she thought about Kale, about the way he made her feel alive and seen and wanted. I need time, she said finally. It's a lot. Kale nodded, stepping back and giving her space to breathe. You have 3 days, he said. Think about it. Explore Nightshade, talk to Lyra or any of the pack. Learn what it means to be bound to an Alpha King. And on the night of the blood moon, give me your answer. He turned to leave, then paused at the entrance to the cavern. Ilara, he said, glancing back at her. Whatever you decide, thank you. Thank you for reminding me what it feels like to want something for myself, not just for my kingdom. Then he was gone, and Ilara was left alone with the moonlight and the ancient magic thrumming in the walls around her. She had 3 days to make a decision that would change her life forever, and she had absolutely no idea what she was going to do. Oh, this is getting intense. Kyle just laid it all out there, and now Ilara has to make the hardest choice of her life. Would you bind yourself to the Alpha King? Would you take that leap of faith? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe and like this video. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers, and we need every single one of you to help us get there. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter, because things are about to get even more complicated. The blood moon is coming, and with it, secrets that will shake Nightshade to its core. The next morning, Ilara woke to find Lyra sitting in a chair by her window, looking annoyingly alert for whatever ungodly hour it was. Get up, Lyra said without preamble. If you're going to make an informed decision about the binding, you need to understand what you're getting into. And that means training, Ilara groaned, burying her face in her pillow. Training for what? For survival, Lyra said flatly. You might be under Kale's protection, but that won't mean much if you can't defend yourself. Now up. We're burning daylight. An hour later, Ilara found herself in the training yard, dressed in leather pants and a fitted tunic, facing Lyra across a circle of packed earth. Around them, other wolves had gathered to watch, their expressions ranging from amused to skeptical. Ilara felt horribly exposed. The first thing you need to understand, Lyra said, pacing around her like a predator circling prey, is that being bound to an Alpha King doesn't make you his equal in power. It makes you a target. Every enemy he has will come for you, thinking you're the weakness they can exploit. Comforting, Alara muttered. Lyra's lips twitched. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to keep you alive. She tossed a wooden practice sword to Alara, who caught it clumsily. So let's see what you're made of, runaway. What followed was the most brutal hour of Alara's life. Lyra didn't hold back, didn't go easy on her just because she was human and untrained. She attacked relentlessly, forcing Alara to defend, to move, to think. Alara fell, again and again, hitting the ground so hard her bones rattled. But each time, she got back up, driven by something stubborn and fierce. By the end, Alara was bruised, bleeding from a split lip, and absolutely exhausted. But she was also exhilarated. As she lay on her back, staring up at the sky and trying to remember how to breathe, Lyra's face appeared above her. Not bad, Lyra said, and coming from her, it sounded like high praise. You've got fight in you. That's good. You're going to need it. Alara let Lyra pull her to her feet. Why are you helping me? She asked. You don't want me here. I could tell from the moment we met. Lyra was quiet for a moment, then sighed. You're right. I don't want you here. Not because I dislike you specifically, but because... She gestured around at the watching wolves. Because Kale is our alpha king. He's supposed to choose someone from the pack. Someone strong and worthy. Not a human girl who ran from her own people. Then why train me? Alara pressed. Lyra met her eyes. Because Kale chose you. And if my alpha wants you here, wants you bound to him, then my job is to make sure you survive it. Like it or not, you're pack now. And we protect our own. Something in Lyra's words made Alara's throat tighten. I never wanted to be pack, she said quietly. I just wanted to be free. Freedom is overrated. Lyra said with a shrug. Pack is better. Pack means you're never alone, never abandoned. It means when you fall, there are hands to catch you. When you fight, there are warriors at your back. She paused. And when you're bound to an alpha king, it means the most powerful wolf in the realm will burn down the world to keep you safe. Is that what Kale would do? Alara asked. Burn down the world for me? Lyra's expression turned serious. You need to understand something, Alara. Kale isn't just powerful. He's ancient. His bloodline goes back to the first wolves, the ones who made pacts with the moon goddess herself. When he binds himself to someone, it's not just magic. It's a soul-deep connection. He will feel your pain, your joy, your fear, and you'll feel his. She leaned in. So yes, if you accept the binding and someone hurts you, Kale will burn down the world, and he won't lose a moment of sleep over it. Alara shivered, though not entirely from fear. That night, she found herself wandering the palace again, unable to sleep. Her body ached from training, but her mind was even more restless. She ended up in the garden, sitting under one of the silver-leaved trees, staring up at the moon. It was waxing, growing fuller with each passing night, counting down to the blood moon when she would have to give Kale her answer. Can't sleep? A voice said. And Alara jumped. Kale emerged from the shadows, looking tired but alert. He was dressed simply, in dark pants and a loose shirt, and his hair was pulled back from his face. He looked younger like this, more human. I keep thinking about what you said, Alara admitted. About the binding. About what it means. Kale sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Having second thoughts? More like first thoughts, properly, Alara said with a weak laugh. Lyra told me some things today, about what happens when you bind yourself to someone, about the connection. Lyra has a talent for making things sound dramatic, Kale said, but there was affection in his voice. Is she wrong, though? Alara turned to look at him. About what you would do if someone hurt me. Kale's expression darkened. No, he said simply. She's not wrong. If you accept the binding, Alara, you become mine to protect. And I don't take that lightly. Anyone who tries to harm you would face the full wrath of an alpha king. It wouldn't be pretty. That's a lot of pressure, Alara whispered. To be responsible for someone's life like that. You wouldn't be responsible for my actions, Kale corrected gently. I'm responsible for my own choices. But you would be my anchor, my tether to this world. You would give me a reason to be more than just a king, more than just power and duty. Alara was quiet for a long moment. What if I'm not strong enough? She finally asked. What if I can't handle it? Kyle reached over and took her hand, his fingers lacing through hers. You ran into a frozen mountain to escape a life you didn't want, he said. You challenged me even when you thought I might kill you. You got back up every time Lyra knocked you down today. Trust me, Alara, you're stronger than you know. His words settled something in her chest, but the fear didn't completely go away. Tell me about the ritual, she said. What happens during the binding? Kyle was quiet for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. We'll go to the heart of Nightshade, to that cavern I showed you. The full moon will be at its peak, and the magic will be strongest. We'll enter the pool together, and I'll speak the words of binding, words that have been passed down through my bloodline for generations. He paused. Then, if you accept, you'll speak your own words, your own promise, and the magic will seal us together. What kind of promise? Alara asked. Kyle smiled. That's the thing about the binding. Your words have to be your own, have to come from your heart. There's no script, no formula. You speak what you feel, what you're willing to give and to take. And then what? We're just connected. You'll feel it immediately, Kyle said. A warmth in your chest, a pull toward me no matter where I am. You'll be able to sense my emotions, my general well-being, and I'll sense yours. Over time, the connection will deepen. We might even be able to share thoughts, to communicate without words. That sounds invasive, Alara said, though part of her was intrigued. It can be, Kale admitted, but it's also beautiful. To never be truly alone, to always have someone who understands you completely. My parents were bound, and my father once told me that even when they fought, even when they drove each other mad, he could feel my mother's love for him like a second heartbeat. When she died, he said it was like losing half his soul. Alara heard the pain in his voice. Is that why you haven't bound yourself to anyone before now? Because you were afraid of losing them? Kale's hand tightened on hers. Maybe, he said quietly. Or maybe I was just waiting for someone worth the risk. They sat in silence for a while, hands clasped, looking up at the moon. Alara felt something shift between them, something settling into place. She wasn't sure if it was the magic of Nightshade, or just the simple fact of two people finding each other in the darkness. But it felt right. It felt like coming home. Kale, she said finally, if I say yes... Wait, Kale interrupted. He turned to face her fully, his golden eyes intense. Don't tell me now. Wait until the blood moon. Take the full 3 days I gave you. I don't want you to decide in the heat of a moment. I want you to be sure. Alara wanted to protest, wanted to tell him that she was already sure, that some part of her had been sure since that first night in the caves. But she nodded. Okay, she said. I'll wait. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Alara trained with Lyra each morning, learning not just how to fight, but how to move like a wolf, how to read body language, how to use her smaller size as an advantage. In the afternoons, she explored the palace, and slowly, the other wolves began to warm to her. They stopped seeing her as just a human intruder, and started seeing her as someone their alpha had chosen, someone worth their respect. And at night, she and Kale would find each other, whether in the garden or the library, or walking the palace walls. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories and fears and dreams. Kyle told her about the weight of ruling, about the constant balancing act between being a king and being himself. Alara told him about her childhood, about growing up always feeling like she didn't quite fit, like she was meant for something more than what her clan offered. With each conversation, the connection between them grew stronger. Alara found herself thinking about him at odd moments, wondering what he was doing, whether he was safe. And sometimes, she could swear she felt something warm in her chest, a presence that she knew was him, even from across the palace. On the night before the blood moon, Alara stood at her window, looking out over Nightshade. The moon was almost full, just a sliver away from completeness, and the entire palace seemed to hum with anticipation. Tomorrow night, everything would change. Tomorrow night, she would give Kale her answer, but in her heart, she already knew what it would be. This is where I'll leave you for now, because the Blood Moon chapter is going to absolutely blow your mind, and I want you properly prepared for it. If you're as invested in Alara and Kale's story as I am, show me some love. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and leave a comment telling me what you think is going to happen during the binding ritual. Will Alara say yes? Will something go wrong? Will her old clan crash the ceremony? So many possibilities. Don't forget, we need your help to hit 1,000 subscribers, so share this video with anyone who loves supernatural romance. The next chapter drops soon, and trust me, you do not want to miss it. The day of the blood moon dawned cold and clear. Alara woke early, her stomach a knot of nerves and anticipation. Today was the day. Tonight, under the full moon, she would bind herself to Kale or walk away forever. There was no middle ground, no compromise. It was all or nothing. Lyra appeared at her door just after dawn, carrying a dress that made Alara's breath catch. It was made of deep crimson silk that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light, cut to fit her perfectly. The bodice was intricate, covered in silver embroidery that formed the shapes of wolves and moons, and the skirt fell in flowing layers that would move like water. "This is for the ceremony," Lyra said, laying it on the bed with surprising gentleness. "If you're going through with it, you need to look the part. It's beautiful," Alara whispered, running her fingers over the silk. "It was Kale's mother's," Lyra said quietly. "She wore it when she bound herself to his father. He had it altered for you. Had our best seamstresses work on it for days. That should tell you something about how serious he is." Alara looked at Lyra, seeing something softer in the woman's expression. "You loved her, didn't you? Kale's mother?" Lyra's throat worked. "She saved my life when I was young. Took me in when my own pack cast me out. She taught me everything I know about being strong, about being a warrior. Losing her," she shook her head. "It broke something in Kale. He's never been the same since. More distant, more controlled. Until you. I'm not trying to replace her," Alara said quickly. "I know," Lyra said, "and that's exactly why you might be good for him. You're not trying to be anything other than yourself, and that's what he needs." She headed for the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, run away. I think you should say yes. Kale doesn't let people in easily, doesn't let himself care. If he's willing to bind himself to you, it means something." The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Alara tried to eat but couldn't stomach more than a few bites. She tried to read, but couldn't focus on the words. Finally, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, there was a knock on her door. It was Kyle, dressed in ceremonial clothes she'd never seen before. Black leather pants and a tunic made of the same dark material as the palace itself, shot through with silver that caught the fading light. His hair was loose around his shoulders, and his golden eyes were intense as they met hers. "It's time," he said simply. Alara nodded, her heart pounding. She'd already changed into the crimson dress, and she saw something flicker in Kyle's eyes when he looked at her. "You look—" He stopped, seeming to search for words. "You look like a queen." "I'm not a queen," Alara said, though her voice shook. "Not yet," Kale said softly. He offered her his hand. "Come. The moon is rising." They walked through the palace in silence, Kale's hand warm and steady in hers. Wolves lined the corridors, all of them watching, but none of them speaking. This was a sacred moment, a ceremony that hadn't been performed in decades. The entire pack felt the weight of it. When they reached the entrance to the cavern, Lyra was waiting. She had changed into ceremonial armor, polished black and silver that gleamed in the torchlight. Behind her stood a dozen other wolves, all in similar attire, all silent and serious. "We'll witness," Lyra said formally, "as is tradition." Kyle nodded, then led Alara down the stairs. They descended into the heart of the mountain, into that cavern she'd seen days before. But tonight, it was different. The moon was directly overhead, visible through the opening in the ceiling, and it was massive, bloated and red as fresh blood. The blood moon. Its light filled the cavern, turning everything the color of wine and shadows. The pool in the center of the cavern was perfectly still, reflecting the crimson moon like a mirror. Kyle led her to the edge, then turned to face her. Behind them, Lyra and the witnesses took their places around the cavern, forming a circle. "Ilara," Kyle said, his voice carrying through the space, "I brought you here to offer you a choice, a binding between us, a connection that will tie our souls together until death and beyond. But before we begin, I need to know, have you made your decision?" Ilara's heart was hammering against her ribs, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "I have." "And?" Kale's expression was carefully neutral, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched at his sides. Ilara took a breath, looking at this man, this alpha king, who had given her freedom when she needed it most, who had seen her not as property, but as a person. She thought about the life she'd fled, about Theron's cold eyes and the suffocating weight of obligation. And then she thought about Kale, about his warmth and his strength and the way he made her feel alive. "Yes," she said clearly. "My answer is yes." The relief that washed over Kale's face was almost painful to see. He reached for her, pulling her close, and pressed his forehead to hers. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for choosing me." Then he stepped back, and his expression turned serious, formal. "Then let us begin." Kyle walked into the pool, the water rising to his waist, and held out his hand to Ilara. She took it and followed him in. The water was warm, almost hot, and it tingled against her skin like electricity. She could feel magic thrumming through it, ancient and powerful. Kale kept hold of her hand as he began to speak, his voice resonating through the cavern. "By the light of the blood moon, by the power of the ancient pact, I, Kale of Nightshade, Alpha King of the Wolf Clans, offer myself as anchor and protector." The water around them began to glow, soft silver light spreading from where they stood. "I bind my strength to your courage, my power to your will, my life to your life." The light grew brighter, and Ilara felt warmth spreading through her chest, like someone had lit a fire inside her heart. Kale's eyes never left hers as he continued. "I promise to protect you from all harm, to stand at your side in every battle, to honor your freedom even as I claim your soul as mine. By blood and moon, by tooth and claw, I bind myself to you, Ilara, until the stars fall from the sky." The entire cavern was glowing now, silver and crimson light dancing across the walls like living things. The witnesses around them had their eyes closed, their faces tilted up toward the moon, and Ilara could feel their power adding to the ritual, strengthening it. Now it was her turn. Ilara's voice shook at first, but grew stronger as she spoke from her heart. "I, Ilara, once of Clan Frost, now of Nightshade, accept your binding." The warmth in her chest intensified, spreading through her entire body. "I offer you my trust, my loyalty, my soul. I promise to stand with you in strength and in weakness, to challenge you when you need it, to support you when you falter." She squeezed Kale's hand, feeling the magic pulsing between them. "I was running when you found me, running from a life I didn't want, from chains I couldn't break. You gave me freedom, but now I choose to bind myself to you, not out of duty or fear, but because I want to, because being with you feels like coming home." Tears streamed down her face as she finished. "By blood and moon, by heart and soul, I bind myself to you, Kale, for as long as we both shall live." The moment the words left her lips, the cavern exploded with light. Silver and crimson magic swirled around them like a living storm, lifting them slightly out of the water. Ilara gasped as she felt something snap into place inside her chest, a connection that was suddenly, blazingly real. She could feel Kyle, feel his emotions, his power, his very essence. Relief, joy, love, all of it flooded through her in overwhelming waves. And then, just as suddenly, the light condensed, pouring into them both. Ilara cried out as power surged through her body. Kale's power, ancient and vast and terrifying. She felt her bones strengthen, her senses sharpen, her very cells reorganizing themselves. The magic of Nightshade was claiming her, marking her as the Alpha King's mate, his bound partner. When the light finally faded, Alara collapsed against Kale, who caught her easily. They were both glowing faintly, silver light pulsing under their skin in time with their heartbeats. Kale cupped her face in his hands, and Alara could see tears streaming down his own face. "Can you feel it?" he asked hoarsely. "Can you feel me?" "Yes," Alara breathed. "I can feel everything. It's like you're part of me now." "Because I am," Kyle said. "And you're part of me." He pulled her into a kiss that was fierce and desperate and full of promise. Alara kissed him back, wrapping her arms around his neck, feeling the bond between them sing with completion. Around them, the witnesses erupted in howls, the sound echoing through the cavern and out into the night. It was a celebration, a recognition of what had just happened. Nightshade had a new anchor, a new heart. But as Alara clung to Kale, as she felt the enormity of what they'd just done settle over her, she also felt something else, a disturbance at the edge of her new awareness. Something wrong. She pulled back from the kiss, her eyes widening. "Kale," she said urgently. "Something's wrong." Kale's expression immediately sharpened, and she knew he felt it too. "The gates," he growled. "Someone's at the gates." Lyra was suddenly there, her sword drawn. "Alpha," she said urgently. "We have visitors, Clan Frost. They're demanding entry, demanding you return their property." Her eyes flicked to Alara. "They want her back." The joy of the binding evaporated, replaced by cold fury. Alara felt Kale's rage through their new bond, felt it like a living thing. "They dare," he said softly, and his voice was death. "They dare come to my territory, on this night of all nights, and make demands? Let me handle this," Alara said quickly, but Kale shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "Your pack now, my pack, my mate, and I will deal with anyone who tries to take you from me." He looked at Lyra. "Gather the warriors. We're going to the gates. It's time Clan Frost learned what it means to cross the Alpha King." As they climbed out of the pool, water streaming from their ceremonial clothes, Alara felt the bond between her and Kale thrumming with determination and protective fury. Whatever was waiting at the gates, they would face it together. She wasn't running anymore. She was pack. She was bound, and she was ready to fight for her freedom one last time. That's where we're leaving this chapter. Can you believe it? Alara and Kale just completed the binding. Their souls are literally connected, and now Clan Frost shows up to ruin everything. What's going to happen? Will there be a war? Will Alara have to face Theron? Will the binding hold under pressure? You'll have to wait for the next chapter to find out. If you're dying to know what happens next, make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and turn on notifications. We're so incredibly close to 1,000 subscribers, and we couldn't do this without you. Comment below and tell me, do you think Kale should just destroy Clan Frost? Or should Alara get a chance to face them herself? Let's discuss. The final chapter is coming, and it's going to be epic. The walk from the heart of Nightshade to the palace gates felt like a death march. Alara could feel Kale's fury radiating through their bond, could feel the way his wolf was barely contained beneath his skin. The entire pack had mobilized, warriors streaming from every corner of the palace, all of them armed and ready for battle. The air crackled with tension and magic. Lyra walked on Kale's other side, her expression grim. "They brought an army," she reported quietly. 200 wolves, maybe more. They're in formation outside the gates, waiting. "Good," Kale said, his voice cold. "Let them wait. Let them see what they're up against." Alara's stomach twisted with fear, but not for herself. Through the bond, she could feel how close Kale was to losing control, to letting his wolf take over completely. "Kale," she said softly, touching his arm, "we need to think about this. If we attack Clan Frost, it could spark a war between all the clans." "Let it," Kale growled. "I'm done playing politics with people who think they can claim ownership over others." "I'm not saying don't fight," Alara said firmly. "I'm saying let me talk to them first. Let me face them. Kyle stopped walking and turned to face her, his golden eyes blazing. No, he said flatly. Absolutely not. You are mine to protect, Alara. I will not put you in danger. I'm not asking permission, Alara said, meeting his gaze steadily. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. This started because I ran from them, because I refused to be their property. I need to be the one to end it. She reached up and cupped his face in her hands. Trust me. Trust that I can handle this. You gave me freedom, Kyle. Don't take it away now. She felt his internal struggle through the bond, felt the war between his protective instincts and his respect for her autonomy. Finally, he covered her hands with his own. If anything happens to you, then you'll feel it immediately, and you can unleash hell, Alara finished. But give me a chance first. Please. Kale's jaw clenched, but he nodded. 5 minutes, he said. You get 5 minutes to talk. If they make any move against you, if I sense even a hint of danger through our bond, I'm ending this conversation in blood. Deal, Alara said. They reached the gates, massive structures of iron and silver that stood open just enough to see the army assembled outside. And it was an army, wolves in both human and animal form, all wearing the insignia of Clan Frost, all armed with weapons that gleamed in the red light of the blood moon. At their head stood a man Alara recognized immediately, Theron. Her almost husband, the man she'd been meant to bind herself to. He looked different than she remembered. Older, harder, with a cruelty in his eyes that she'd never noticed before. Next to him stood an elderly man in ceremonial robes, one of the clan elders. And behind them, Alara's heart sank, her own parents. Kyle stepped forward, and every wolf and nightshade moved with him, a show of unified strength that was intimidating even to Alara. You have 30 seconds to state your business, Kale said, his voice carrying with the weight of command, before I consider your presence an act of war. The elder spoke, his voice reedy but firm. Alpha King, we come in peace, seeking only what is rightfully ours. The woman, Alara, fled her moonbinding ceremony, disgracing her clan and her betrothed. We demand her return to face justice. She belongs to no one, Kale said flatly. She is Pack now. Mine. She is property of Clan Frost, Theron spat, stepping forward. His eyes found Alara, and the hatred in them made her flinch. She humiliated me, made me look weak in front of the entire clan. She will answer for that. Alara felt Kale's rage spike through their bond, felt him preparing to attack, and she quickly stepped forward, placing herself slightly in front of him. I'm right here, Theron, she said, her voice carrying across the space. You want to talk about humiliation? Let's talk about it. Alara, her mother started, but Alara cut her off. No, she said firmly. You don't get to speak. None of you do. Not after what you tried to do to me. She looked at Theron. You talk about humiliation like it's the worst thing in the world. But you know what's worse? Being sold like cattle. Being told your entire life that your opinions, your dreams, your desires don't matter. That your only purpose is to be useful to men who see you as a tool, not a person. You were honored, Theron shouted. You were chosen for a sacred ceremony. I was trapped, Alara shouted back. And I refused to spend my life in a cage just because it was decorated with pretty words like sacred and honored. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. I ran, yes. I fled the moonbinding because I would rather die than be bound to someone who doesn't even see me as human. And you know what I found? She reached back and took Kyle's hand, feeling his strength flow through their bond. I found someone who gave me a choice, who saw me, not as property, but as an equal, and I chose him. Freely. Willingly. Because that's what a real binding is. Choice, not coercion. You've been bewitched by the Alpha King, the elder said, his voice dripping with disdain. He's used his dark magic to cloud your mind. The only thing clouding anyone's mind is your ridiculous belief that you have any right to control me, Alara shot back. I'm done, Theron. I'm done with Clan Frost. Done with your traditions that treat women like prizes to be won. And I'm not coming back. Ever. Theron's face twisted with rage. You think you're safe here? You think the Alpha King's protection means anything? We will. He never finished the sentence. Kale moved with terrifying speed, crossing the distance between them in a heartbeat and grabbing Theron by the throat. He lifted the other man off the ground effortlessly, his eyes blazing gold. Finish that threat, Kale said softly, deadly. I dare you. Theron choked, clawing at Kale's hand, and the Clan Frost army surged forward. Immediately, Nightshade's warriors moved to intercept, and for a moment, violence hung in the air like a drawn blade. Kyle, don't, Alara said urgently, feeling his barely controlled rage through their bond. He's not worth it. For a long moment, Kyle didn't move. Then slowly he released Theron, letting him fall to the ground in a gasping heap. You came to my territory, Kale said, his voice carrying to every wolf present, on the night of the blood moon, the most sacred night of our kind, and you demanded I return something that was never yours to begin with. You insulted me. You insulted my mate. And you brought an army to my gates as if I am someone who can be intimidated. He took a step forward, and every single Clan Frostwolf took a step back. So let me make something very clear. Alara is mine. She chose me, bound herself to me of her own free will. Any of you who try to take her, who even speak her name with disrespect, will answer to me. And I promise you, there is no force in this world that can protect you from an Alpha King defending his mate. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The elder's face had gone pale, and Theron looked like he wanted to attack but was too terrified to move. Then, Alara's father stepped forward. He looked older than she remembered, more fragile, and there was something in his eyes that looked like regret. Alara, he said quietly, is this truly what you want? Alara felt tears pricking her eyes but kept her voice steady. Yes, father. This is what I want. I'm sorry I hurt you. Sorry I brought shame on our family. But I had to choose myself. I had to choose freedom. Her father was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then I release you, he said formally, and Alara heard several gasps from the Clan Frostwolves. As your father and head of your family line, I release you from all obligations to Clan Frost. You are free to forge your own path. No! Theron shouted, rounding on Alara's father. You can't. I can, and I have, her father said firmly. My daughter has made her choice, and while I don't understand it, while I believe she's making a mistake, I will not force her into a life she doesn't want. He looked at Alara, and she saw tears in his eyes. Be happy, little one. That's all I ever wanted for you. Alara felt something break open in her chest. Thank you, father, she whispered. The elder looked furious, but there was nothing he could do. Without her father's support, Clan Frost had no legal claim on her. This isn't over. He spat at Kale. The other clans will hear about this, about how you harbor runaways and spit on our traditions. Let them hear, Kale said coldly, and let them know that any clan that tries to force its members into bindings they don't want will find themselves answering to me. The old ways are dead. It's time for a new age, where wolves choose their own paths, their own mates, their own destinies. He glanced at Lyra, who stepped forward. Escort our guests off Nightshade territory. If they're not gone within the hour, consider them hostile. Lyra grinned, a feral expression that promised violence. With pleasure, Alpha. As Clan Frost began their retreat, Theron looked back at Alara one last time. You'll regret this, he said. You'll regret choosing him over me. Alara met his gaze steadily. The only thing I regret, she said clearly, is that I didn't run sooner. Then she turned her back on him, on all of them, and walked back into Nightshade with Kale at her side. The gates closed behind them with a final resounding clang, and Alara felt something she hadn't felt since that night she fled into the mountains. Peace. The courtyard erupted in celebration. Wolves howled and cheered, celebrating not just the binding but this victory, this reclamation of freedom and choice. Alara found herself surrounded by her new pack, by wolves who welcomed her not as an outsider, but as one of their own. Lyra clapped her on the shoulder hard enough to bruise. "Not bad, Runaway," she said with grudging respect. "Not bad at all." But Alara's eyes found Kale's through the crowd, and everything else faded away. He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her with a passion that made her forget everything except the two of them and the bond that tied their souls together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale pressed his forehead to hers. "You terrified me," he murmured, "facing them like that." "I had to," Alara said, "for myself, and for us. I needed them to understand that I wasn't choosing you because I was running from them, but because I was running toward you." Kale's arms tightened around her. "You are the bravest person I've ever met," he said quietly, "and I am honored beyond words that you chose me." "I'm the one who's honored," Alara said, smiling up at him. "You gave me everything I ever wanted. Freedom, choice, a home, you." That night, after the celebrations had died down and the palace had finally fallen quiet, Alara and Kale stood together on the highest tower of Nightshade, looking out over the mountains. The blood moon was setting, its red light giving way to the soft silver of dawn, and Alara felt the weight of everything that had happened settling over her. "What happens now?" she asked, leaning back against Kale's chest, his arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on top of her head. "Now," he said, "we live. We rule together. We change the old ways, make Nightshade a place where everyone has the freedom to choose their own path." He paused. "And we love each other. That's what happens now." Alara felt tears streaming down her face, but they were happy tears. "I never thought I'd have this," she whispered. "I never thought I'd find someone who understood. I never thought I'd find someone who made me want to be more than just a king." Kale said quietly, "But you did. You make me want to be better. To build something beautiful instead of just maintaining power." They stood there as the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and Alara felt the bond between them pulsing with warmth and contentment. She had run into frozen mountains to escape her fate, and instead, she had found her destiny, not in chains or ceremony, but in the arms of an Alpha King who saw her, truly saw her, and loved her not despite her wildness, but because of it. The future stretched out before them, unknown and full of possibility. There would be challenges, she knew. Not every clan would accept the changes Kale wanted to make. There would be battles, both political and physical. But Alara wasn't afraid. She had faced her demons, had stood up for herself, and had found her pack. And with Kale by her side, with their souls bound together by moonlight and magic, she knew they could face anything. "I love you," she said, turning in his arms to face him. "I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a short time, but I do. I love you, Kale of Nightshade." Kale's smile was radiant, transforming his usually serious face into something beautiful and young. "I love you too, Alara," he said, cupping her face in his hands. "My mate, my anchor, my runaway bride who found her way home." He kissed her as the sun fully rose, bathing them both in golden light. And Alara knew that this was just the beginning of their story, of their reign, of a new age for the wolf clans. She had hidden in frozen mountain caves to avoid a ceremony that would have trapped her. And she had been found by an Alpha King who set her free. It was the best thing that ever happened to her. And that's our story. From the frozen caves of Thorn Peak to the halls of Nightshade Palace, from a runaway bride to the mate of an Alpha King, Alara's journey has been incredible. I hope you loved every minute of it. If this story touched your heart, if Alara and Kale's love made you feel something, then please, please, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world, and it's what allows us to keep bringing you these epic stories. Drop a comment and let me know what your favorite moment was. Was it the binding ceremony, the confrontation with Clan Frost, that first meeting in the Crystal Cave? I want to hear from you, and if you want more stories like this, more powerful alphas and brave heroines, more forbidden romance and supernatural magic, then make sure you're subscribed because we have so many more tales to tell. Thank you for being part of this pack, for taking this journey with Alara and Kale. Until next time, this is Alpha Destiny Tales, where every story is a legend waiting to unfold. See you in the next one.